All right. So, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you guys are having a great time at Indie WriterFest so far. I hope you guys have been learning a ton, feeling super motivated. I'm going to go ahead and get started. But again, if you haven't yet already, feel free to introduce yourself to everyone in the chat. Talk about, if you have any publishing plans. It sounds like a lot of you guys have a lot of plans coming up. And just give me one quick second to figure things out. I have a fun presentation for you guys today. And let me know, of course, if you can see my screen. Let's see. All right. So today we're going to be talking all about creating your book publishing timeline. And if you guys have any questions along the way, drop them in the chat. I will also have a portion at the end of this webinar to answer questions at the end. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So let's see. There we go. So I just wanted to explain real quick how this webinar is going to work, first of all. So you guys have a worksheet. You guys should have been sent the worksheet in advance, but you can also see that our lovely host has sent the worksheet as a link on Google Drive. So if you just scroll back in the comments a bit, you can find the link to this worksheet. And we're going to be working off this worksheet today, just kind of as we go through the slides. And it's kind of made as a place to brainstorm or a place to write notes as we go through things here. And then I also want to let you know that at the end of this webinar, the slides that I have today are going to be available for download in case like you aren't able to take notes fast enough or whatnot. So let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Mandi Lynn. You guys may know me, you may not, I don't know, but I'm an author. I'm on Amazon as Mandi Lynn for my fiction and as Stone Ridge Books for my nonfiction. I'm also a YouTuber. I make videos on the business of being an author, and I'm also a graphic designer. I make book covers, I do book formatting, and I also design stickers. Some of those stickers being stickers designed for us writers to track our word count. So I also want to know, who you guys are. What are you working on currently? What genre is your book? In case you were curious, I am currently working on proofreading Let the Rebel Fall, which is the second book in the Road Trip Snapshot series, which I'm so excited about. It comes out next month. So I'm just over the moon. Obviously, I'm in the proofreading stage, so we are in the home stretch. After all this planning that I've done, we are in the home stretch, and I couldn't be any more excited to share this book. All right, so as I go through this webinar, I'm going to be referencing different resources. Some of the resources I've created, other resources are resources from other authors. I just wanted to go through them quickly with you guys before we get into the nitty gritty. So the first resource is the Book Launch Planner series. It's a series of planners that focuses on each different phase of the writing and publishing process. So we've got my writing planner, my novel outline planner, and my book launch planner, and they're self-labeled. You can see what each one's about. And then we have Publisher Rocket. This is another really fun tool. It's created by Kindlepreneur. It's a tool that allows you to do keyword and category research. And oops, I went too fast. And then we have the Marketing for Authors series. I'm going to be going over really broad view marketing today, but there's going to be a lot more than what I can cover in this webinar. So that's what this series is kind of for, if you want to learn about each individual type of book marketing that you can do along the way. And then we have also an entire series on YouTube. These are free videos that you can watch on YouTube to learn about self-publishing, because again, what I go over today is going to be more broad view. And then if you want to learn about specific things, be sure to check out this playlist. All of this is linked on, what was I going to say? It's linked on that download that you guys have. And then as you can see, the slides have the links, the slides have the QR codes. And then I also have a book formatting course if you ever want to learn how to format your book on your own. And let's just get into it. So the first draft, guys. So when this is going to be the first step in the phase of figuring out when you want to publish your book, because the first thing you got to do, perhaps the hardest thing you got to do, is finish the first draft. So we're going to be oh, there's a 404 error on the playlist link. Okay, sorry guys. For the YouTube playlist, if you just go to my channel, Mandi Lynn, you should be able to find the self-publishing playlist. But for the first draft, how long will outlining take is probably the first question you're going to want to ask yourself, because some people need like a couple months to outline a book and other people need like a day or two. I personally am the type of person who likes to outline my book in a day or two. I do very rough outlines. I personally use the save the cat method, and I just outline my beats. And then once I have my beats, I just kind of start writing from there. I don't do very in-depth chapter by chapter outlines, just because that's how I work best as a writer. And then you'll also want to ask yourself, how many words a day do you want to write? So this is something I like to figure out because, like, again, I do really well when I do a lot of writing all at once rather than like writing a little bit every day. And I know a lot of writers thrive on writing a little bit every day, but that's why it's helpful to ask yourself these questions, because it allows you to kind of feel like how fast of a writer you are and maybe like what your style of workflow is. So for me, I would much rather sit down and work on just my book all day than work on it a little bit every day, because I like to get into the zone and really embrace it. And then you'll also want to ask yourself, like, how long will the first draft take as a whole? So once you know how many words a day you want to write, you can kind of do the math behind figuring out, how long that's going to take. So for me, for the month of November, since it's National Novel Writing Month, I've made it a personal goal of mine to write the entire first draft of this next book this month. Not 50,000 words, but 80,000 words, because that tends to be how long my books typically are. So from there, if I know that I want to take a month to write the first draft, I then have to be like, okay, how many days this month do I want to write? And then do the math from there to figure out how many words I then need to write this month. And you definitely don't need to take a month to write your first draft. A month is a very quick span of time to write your first draft. This is just how I'm choosing to challenge myself as a writer. Will I actually write 80,000 words this month? I have no clue, but I'm going to try my best. So as we go through all these steps today, we're just kind of trying to figure out what the general time frame is on everything. Like, how long is each step going to take you? And some people, like right now, we're working from beginning to end, from first draft to publication day. But for other people, you may work better if you know what day you want to publish your book on, and then you kind of work backwards to be like, okay, if I want to publish my book in July, then I need to finish the first draft by this day. And that's fine too. Just in today's example, we're going to be going in sequential order. So after we do the first draft, and some helpful tools to, doing some goal setting for your first draft is checking out my writing planner, which you can use to track your daily word count progress and other milestones, and also to set some writing goals. And then you can also use my novel outline planner as a tool to actually outline your book. So then the next step, of course, would be to do self-edits. Self-edits is a stage that's very difficult because you've just written the first draft. So the next thing you got to do is make this first draft readable. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to have very messy first drafts. I have to do some pretty heavy editing before it's ever ready for beta readers. So This is the edits that happen after the first draft, but before beta readers, before developmental edits, before alpha readers, whatever you choose to have your next step be, this is before that. So you really got to ask yourself, how long will it take you to do your self edits? I find the best thing to figure out how long it's going to take me is to step away from my book for a little bit. And when I step away, I am able to think like, oh, I think there's this scene needs to be fixed, or I think this scene needs to be fixed. I have like a notebook where I write down all these thoughts on what may need to be fixed. That way I can go in and actually make those corrections later with a fresh mind. And it's really, this is probably the step that I feel like is the hardest to gauge how long it will take, because you've already have the book completed, but some sections of the book may take like a day or two to rewrite, while other sections could take weeks. I've been there. So this may be the section that you may need to be the most flexible on, because this is at the very beginning of edits is when you're going to find the most issues. So it's going to be the stage that takes the most time. And then we have developmental edits. So this could come in a lot of different forms. It could come in the form of working with alpha readers, which are like the first set of eyes to ever read your book and give feedback on your book. They may be like, an alpha reader could also be considered like a critique partner that you work with. You could also work with beta readers, and beta readers usually is, you tend to work with maybe only a small handful of alpha readers, but you may work with a lot more beta readers, and a lot more beta readers will give a lot more feedback. Or you can work with a developmental editor. However you choose to edit your book. Again, this is an editing stage that will take a lot of time. Developmental edits and self edits definitely like overlap a lot, because you may think when you do your self edits that you fix a lot of things, and then you start working with alpha readers or beta readers and developmental editors, and then you realize, oh, I missed a lot of plot holes. So again, this is another step that can take a lot of time, and you just need to be mindful of it when you're planning out your book release. So maybe ask yourself, how many rounds of developmental edits will you need? If you're a debut author, or you have only written like a couple books, you may end up doing a lot more developmental edits than like someone who's written a ton of books. Or you might just be someone who writes a really clean first draft right off the bat, and you may only need one round of developmental edits. I tend to do like 2 or 3 rounds of developmental edits. I usually do like a round of alpha readers and then a round of beta readers. But then I also like to count my self edits as a round of developmental edits as well. So that process for me usually takes a couple months. And you also have to be mindful like of how much time will an alpha reader need to read the book, or how much time will a beta reader need to read the book, or how much time will a developmental editor need to read the book. So you also have to be mindful of that, not just how long it's going to take you to edit the book, but how long it's going to take someone else to read and give feedback on the book. So yeah, and then after you do all that math to figure out how many people you want to work with and how many rounds you want to do, then you can ask yourself the big question, how long will it take you to do developmental edits? And as you can see, we're only a few steps into the book publishing process, but there's no clear-cut answers. Everyone works very differently, and every book will be very different. You might write one book that only needs 1 round of developmental edits, and then you may write the next book that needs 3 rounds. I see a great question in the comments. How did everyone find their alpha or beta readers? So if you guys do want to chit chat with each other about that in the comments, I totally invite you to. For me, I always have a form that I send out to my author newsletter, and I ask people in my author newsletter if they want to beta read or alpha read for me. And that's how I found my alpha readers and beta readers. But if you guys have other ways that you found your alpha readers or beta readers, feel free to share in the comments. But that is a great question. So moving on to the next step, we have copy edits. And then you can also have line edits and like line edits and copy edits. Those are two different types of editing as well. So I just wanted to point that out. But today specifically, I'm talking about copy edits. But you may also want to put line edits into your publishing timeline as well if you feel your manuscript has the need for that. But copy edits is, we're done with doing our story, like we're done editing the story. Now we're looking for spelling, grammar, punctuation, repetitive words, all that fun stuff. So the next thing you need to ask yourself for this step when you're planning out your book launch is, how long is your edits going to take? So this will depend on how long your editor needs to go through their manuscript, and then how long you need to then go through the edits that your editor makes. I definitely don't recommend doing copy edits yourself, just because even if you're the best editor in the world, you're going to miss stuff because it's what you wrote. So you're just kind of prone to your eyes kind of glazing over things. So definitely work with someone else if you can and if you have the budget to. But that will be your best plan of action for that. So yeah, the copy edits is a fun phase of editing, if you ask me, because you're kind of done with the hardest part of creating the book. Like, you've got the story figured out and nailed down, and now you're doing the more nitty gritty detail oriented stuff, which after doing so many rewrites and plot structure stuff, doing copy edits can be very satisfying because you're like, oh, we're getting to the end here. So then that brings us to the next step, which is proofreading. So this is your final round of edits. And it can be exciting and also nerve-wracking because you're also sitting back to yourself and saying, oh my God, this is my final round of edits. Like, after this, there's no return. Like, this is it. We're here. We're at the end. So this is when you want to ask yourself, like, are you going to hire an editor? Are you going to hire someone to proofread your book? Are you going to try to proofread the book yourself? Are you going to have a whole bunch of people help you proofread the book? How many people do you have to help you proofread your book? I recommend the more people you can have read your book before publication day, the better, because even the best proofreader in the world is going to miss stuff. So having as many eyes on your manuscript as possible before you hit publish is the best thing. So just ask yourself, after figuring out your plan for proofreading, how long will you need to proofread your book? Do you need a month? Do you need 2 months? The people that you plan on having you help read the book, how much time does each person need to do some proofreading? And there are a lot of different answers to those questions as well. Like, I know my mom helps me proofread my books, and she usually spends like a week with the manuscript, and then I implement her edits and I double check everything, and then I send the book off to someone else. And then the next person may only need a couple days, or they may need like a couple weeks. So I usually like to plan out a month or two for the proofreading process just to be safe, but I definitely prefer to finish it like as soon as possible so I can rest assured leading up to release that my book is ready and done. So then the next step is formatting the book. So this is when I feel like things get really fun. Like, we're kind of done with the creation phase of the book publishing process. Like, and mind you, a lot of this may overlap. Like, while we are editing the book, we may also be designing the cover, or we may also be starting the formatting process, although you technically don't want to format the book until the book is done. But there's going to be a lot of overlap. So even though I'm talking about things in an order today, do know sometimes the order gets a little wonky. So when it comes to formatting the book, you'll want to ask yourself, will you hire someone or will you do it yourself? So a lot of authors do love to format their book themselves. It is possible to format your book for print in Word. It's possible. It's just not user friendly. I do have a tutorial somewhere on my YouTube channel where I kind of go over how to format your book in Microsoft Word. and you can do it. Just know that you might be pulling a little bit of hair out in the process. I highly recommend working with Adobe InDesign. That's the software I use to format all my books. That's the software I teach you guys how to use in my book formatting course, which I have listed as a helpful tool. Oh, that's a typo. Ignore that. But so I highly recommend either using Adobe InDesign, or there's other book formatting softwares out there that are like specific to formatting books. If you're gonna do it yourself, I definitely recommend working with like literally anything but Microsoft Word. But if you're not comfortable doing it yourself, definitely hire someone. And if you're gonna hire someone, you have to ask yourself, like, how long does that person need to format the book? And then of course, if you want to do it, if you want to do the formatting, how long will you need to format the book? And if you plan on formatting the book yourself, definitely give yourself more time than you think you'll need, because trust me, you're going to run into a couple like problems, especially if it's your first time formatting a book. It's just it's bound to happen when you're formatting a book for the first time. You might just sit down and be like, oh, here's a glitch that I didn't anticipate. So yeah, that is the formatting process. And again, I have here, can you format a book in Microsoft Word? The answer is yes, you can. It's just not ideal, and you're just going to get a headache. And I see a lot of people talking about Atticus. Atticus is a great book formatting software. There's another one that I can't think of right now, but I think it's Vellum. Vellum's also another one, but I think that one's just for Mac. So if you have a PC, Atticus or Adobe InDesign may be like your only two options for print. And then Affinity Publisher, someone else is saying, is also a really good one. And there's also a bunch of different ebook formatting softwares out there as well too. There's a ton of softwares. So moving on to the next moving on to the next step, we have designing the book cover. So this is the one that authors get the most excited for. This is the step that can really go anywhere in the grand scheme of planning your book launch. But definitely, one, give yourself more time than you think you need. Most designers book out in advance. I can say this as a cover designer myself. I cannot tell you how many times I've had people reach out to me saying, my book publishes next month. Can we work together? And I have to say, no, we can't, because I mean, right now I'm like 3 or 4 months in advance for booking with clients. So if you have a cover designer that you want to work out, please, please, please reach out to them in advance, schedule with them in advance. It will be so helpful to you if you just go ahead and get things scheduled beforehand. But on that same note, I also want to say, don't do your cover design so early in the writing process, because I've also seen a lot of authors get their they get their covers designed and they haven't even finished the first draft yet. And that's a dangerous thing for a lot of different reasons, because having your cover design can be a very motivating thing. And sometimes you might want to save your cover design process as something that you can use to reward yourself. So say like you're really struggling to write the first draft of your book. Instead of being like, I'm going to take a break from writing the first draft and I'm going to work with my cover designer to see if that helps motivate me, I would say, tell yourself that once you finish the first draft, you can hire a cover designer and start working with them, because then you'll feel more motivated to actually finish it. Because I don't want to be the person that designs a book cover for an author and the author like loves the cover, but the book never gets published because they just like lost momentum. And it does happen. It doesn't happen like super often, but it is something that does happen. So definitely like, don't design the cover so early that it's when you're in this like honeymoon phase with your book and you're super excited about it, and then you get the cover designed, but then you never finish the first draft and the book never gets published. So use the cover design as, do it early, but not so early that, you aren't quite sure if the book is getting published or not yet. Because I've been there. I've written an entire manuscript, or I should say 75% of a manuscript. And I thought the book was getting published and then I just abandoned it. So I would be so heartbroken if I like designed a cover, fell in love with the cover, spent money on a cover, and then nothing ever happened with it. Um, so yeah, that's my little rant on cover design. But definitely cover design is not something you want to cut corners with. People are, you're willing to spend money on editors, but some people aren't quite willing to spend money on cover design because cover design can also be very expensive, just like editing and hiring an editor can be very expensive. But definitely you get what you pay for when it comes to cover design. The more experienced a cover designer is and the bigger their portfolio is, the more they're going to start charging their clients. So just be mindful of that when you're shopping around. You can definitely, go with a lower budget. You can also go with pre-made book covers to help save money on the cover design process. You can also, like I said, you can do the cover design yourself, but it's definitely not something you want to cut corners on because, you know, people do judge a book by its cover. At the end of the day, people are going to look at a book cover and sometimes decide if they want to buy a book just based off of the book cover. And then you also want to make sure you design the cover to genre. There are genre trends in, so for historical, there's a certain look to covers. For romance, there's a certain look. For thrillers, fantasy, there's different trends in each genre, and you want to make sure that your book cover meets the genre trends. So that's why it can be helpful to work with a cover designer, or just to do different market research. So if you guys were interested in designing a book cover yourself, which again, you can do, it's definitely not something I always recommend, but if you're someone who is really good with Photoshop and you have an eye for graphic design, it's definitely an option, and it's a very fun option because when you design it yourself, you can just play around with the cover endlessly. But I do have a book cover design course in the making. So if you guys want to get in on that, I do have this QR code that you guys can scan if you just want to get on the wait list. It might be a bit until that course is available, but it is something I want to work on, especially for those authors that may not, you don't have the budget to work with a cover designer, or, you are an author who's going to be publishing dozens of books down the line and you just don't have the budget to just pay for dozens of book covers. You get the idea, but that is an option. But 9 times out of 10, I will say most authors, your best bet is to work with a cover designer. And it can also be very, very fun because I'm not every cover designer works like this, but at least when I design book covers, I like to give my clients 2 different concepts. And it's just kind of fun and exciting to see your book cover as 2 different potential things before you start tweaking stuff and making different updates to make it custom and fit your book really well. But always do your research on book cover designers. Look at their portfolio, make sure their portfolio looks like the types of books that you like, and make sure that that the covers that you like are also specific to your book's genre as well. So moving on, I could talk about cover design all day, but let's talk about book SEO. So book SEO is things like your book's keywords, your book's categories, description. This is all stuff that you set up on the back end on KDP or whatever platform you're using to publish your book. My favorite tool to come up with keywords and categories is Publisher Rocket. I talked about it really quick earlier, but Publisher Rocket is awesome to do all this different market research. You can figure out, what keywords will perform best for your book and what categories other books are listed in. And in case you guys didn't know, you can actually add your book into up to 10 categories on KDP. You just have to reach out to KDP and write to them and say, please add my books to these categories, that sort of thing. But that's why Publisher Rocket is awesome, because when you're actually on the back end of KDP, you can only see so many category options. But in reality, there's a lot more categories than what is listed on the back end. So Publisher Rocket allows you to do the research to identify those categories. So you can then reach out to KDP and say, hey, add my book to these categories. And the more categories your book is in, the more better chance you have of your book ranking well. And then you also want to make sure your keywords are set up correctly. And then, of course, our book description is probably the hardest thing in the world that you're ever going to have to write. It's definitely going to take a couple revisions of you guys writing your description, showing it to a couple friends, them making revisions for you, you rewriting it. It's a whole thing. So the biggest thing you're going to ask yourself this step is, how long will this take? How long will it take to come up with keywords and categories and description? Definitely, like you may say to yourself, oh, I can do that all in a day. If you do it well, and you really take your time with it, it will probably take you more than a day. So I do want to just let you guys know that that is a possibility, so you can plan accordingly. A lot of people don't like book SEO. I love doing SEO research. And in case I didn't say it yet, SEO stands for search engine optimization. So you want to optimize your book so when people are searching for something to read on Amazon, that your book may show up in search, or that it may rank well in categories. Basically, you just want to make sure that you want to give Amazon all the information possible, so that when people are searching and looking for books, that Amazon is like, oh, I know this book, I'm going to recommend it to this reader because they seem like they like books in this category. So that is the point of SEO. A lot of people don't like it. They don't always necessarily understand it, but it's super, super important. And it's a step that I feel is often looked like it's just glossed over. So then the next step we have is your pre-order campaign. You don't have to do a pre-order campaign. There's a lot of different reasons why you may choose not to do pre-orders. And that is usually revolving around like wanting your book to rank well on Amazon. But I personally see pre-orders as a way of getting as many sales as possible. But the first question you're going to want to ask yourself is, do you want to do pre-orders? If you kind of want to go through the pros and cons of doing pre-orders or not, I highly recommend checking out Plan a Profitable Book Launch. It's one of the books in the Marketing for Authors series by myself and Bethany Altazada. But in that book, we not only go over like how to do a pre-order campaign and how to encourage pre-orders, but we also kind of talk about why you might not want to do pre-orders. I personally feel like, for me at least, I'm always going to do pre-orders, because as soon as I release my book cover, I want to make it so people see the book and they instantly want to buy it. So I want to offer them a link to be able to buy it so I don't miss a potential sale. That's kind of what I see it as. But you can also choose not to do pre-orders if you're trying to like rank on a bestseller list or something like that. So if you know you do want to do pre-orders, you then have to figure out like how will you encourage pre-orders? Are you going to do like pre-order incentives? So for me, I like to do stickers. I like to do signed book plates. Sometimes I will do pre-orders for signed books. Like I have a pre-order campaign for Let the Rebel Fall, where if you pre-order the ebook on Amazon, you get a free vinyl sticker, you get a free sticker sheet, and then you also get a free signed book plate. But if you want to pre-order a signed paperback, you can do that through my website. And when you pre-order the signed paperback, you get all the stickers I already mentioned, plus a cute little notebook, which I kind of have, sort of. It's not this exact notebook, but it's like a notebook that's the same size as this, and it has a camera on it instead. But that's just something that I do to help encourage people to purchase early, because I just, at the end of the day, publishing a book is a business, and in a business, you want to make money. So you have to do what you got to do to encourage sales. And when you're also doing pre-order campaigns like this, you want to be constantly aware of the issue of money. Like when I'm doing incentives, how much is it going to cost me to create the incentives? How much is it going to cost me to ship the incentives? That's a step that I've looked and missed over all the time. So it's something that you always need to be aware of. You know, if you want to send out stickers to everyone, how much is it going to cost you to buy stickers? And if you want to ship those stickers, how much is it going to cost you to ship? And speaking of shipping, are you going to also offer international shipping? These are all things that you have to consider, and there's a lot of different moving parts in the pre-order incentive process, but also in the book launch process as a whole. But doing pre-orders can be very, very fun as well. So if you do pre-orders, you also want to ask yourself, when will you start taking pre-orders? So for me, I start taking pre-orders when I reveal my book cover. I don't see a point in revealing my book cover until I have my pre-order link ready, because there's two most exciting days in your book's life. The most exciting day is release day, but also cover reveal day. Because cover reveal day is like the first day where everyone gets to, there's something physically representing your book now. You've been talking about your book for a while. Maybe you even released the blurb for the book where people can read about it and know what the book is about. But when you release your cover, your people, like, it's something physical. Like, they may not be holding it yet, but it symbolizes that book and people get excited. So when you have your cover reveal and you have a pre-order link, people see the cover and they're like right away, like, I need that book. And so you want to have that link there so you can get those people that are buying on impulse. But if you reveal your cover, it's super exciting, and then like a month later you release the pre-order, it's like you miss that super exciting part of your book's life. So I always say, if you do plan on doing a pre-order, do it when you do your cover reveal. And I don't recommend doing it separately if you can avoid that, because doing it separately, you really miss something really fun and exciting that you could have taken advantage of. So yeah, if you guys want to learn more about cover reveals and doing pre-orders, make sure to definitely check out Plan a Profitable Book Launch. Cover it way more in that book. I think I also have a couple of YouTube videos on my channel where I talk about cover reveals and doing pre-orders. There's a lot more that goes into it. There's a lot of oddly, a lot of logistics that go into like planning a cover reveal and planning a pre-order campaign. But it's something you guys can have a lot of fun with. So then the next thing is doing advanced reader copies. So for those of you who don't know, I assume everyone does, but I'll go over it just in case. But an advanced reader copy is a copy of the book that you send out before the book is published to readers. They read the book before it's published, and they review the book before it's published. And then hopefully they also review the book after the book is published. So this is just a great way to start doing some marketing before release day. It's a great way to get buzz going. And it's also a great way that come release day, that your book will already have reviews on either Goodreads or Amazon, all that sort of stuff. So if you want to do advanced reader copies, and you don't have to, there's a lot of different steps in the book launch process where you don't have to do every step that I mentioned here. Just know that each step is a different type of marketing, and I feel like the more types of marketing you do, the better chances you will have at, as many sales as possible. So if you're doing ARCs, you want to figure out, what format will the ARCs be? You can do printed ARCs where you physically print out a book and you send it to like people to review it on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. Doing print ARCs is not the best budget friendly thing, but it is something you can choose to do. But most people stick to e-ARCs, so sending out ebooks instead. And then you have to figure out, how are you going to send out advanced reader copies, especially the ebook ones. It can be a little tricky to figure out how to physically send someone an ebook in a way where you're still protecting yourself. Like if you don't want to email someone an EPUB file, because then they could potentially like share it with other people. I like to try to send it directly to people's Kindles if I can. But you're going to have to figure out how you want to send your ARCs. You want to figure out how many ARCs you want to send, because you obviously don't want to give everyone under the sun an advanced reader copy of your book, because then you're giving out free copies of your book and you're not, like, no one's buying the book. You want to, you know what I mean? Like, you want to send it to people who are going to review, but you don't want to send it to literally every single person. And then you also want to figure out when you want to send out your advanced reader copies. So I actually just started the advanced reader copy phase of Let the Rebel Fall. And I personally am only sending out ARCs 2 weeks before the book is published, because I want people to read it and then review it on Amazon. And I fear if they read it too soon and review it too soon on Goodreads or on social media, then come release day, when they are able to review the book on Amazon, they're going to forget to do that. So again, there's a lot more that goes into doing advanced reader copies than what I'm talking about here. But if you want to learn more, check out Plan a Profitable Book Launch. Again, that covers it all. And also the self-publishing series on my YouTube channel goes into this a lot as well too. And then we have release day. There's also probably a lot of other steps I didn't talk about in this, because there's a lot of things you can choose to do to promote your book. And then there's, you know, the necessities, like, or not even necessities. There's the things we talked about today, and then there's even more stuff you can do to plan your book release. But let's talk about release day. So how are you going to celebrate? Because I've had a lot of different release days where I have done book signings, like physically in a bookstore book signings. I've done like book signings at my house where I invite friends and family, or I've done nothing where I just had a relaxing day. And I've done release days where everything has gone wrong. And while everyone else has no clue, I am having mild panic attacks at home trying to solve issues with Amazon. So let me know in the comments how you guys plan on celebrating your release day. I also see Christy asked a great question about ARCs from the last slide. Does anyone use BookFunnel to send out ARCs? So I actually, for the first time, am using BookFunnel to send out advanced reader copies for my book. And I'm hoping to do a review on the a video on the process on my YouTube channel. So if you guys want to, you know, subscribe so you can stay tuned for that. I'm very, very excited to see, you know, how the process for BookFunnel goes for advanced reader copies. So yeah, Courtney says, I assume, Courtney, you're talking about release day celebrations, but you're saying I did a photo cake of the book cover. That sounds so fun. Let's see. I'm trying to see if anyone else said anything. Oh, Janie says, I was thinking about having a Twitch live stream party. That's also fun. I've done live streams for book releases too. That's also a great time. So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways. I've also gone hiking, because Meet Me at the Summit, the first book in the Road Trip Snapshot series, has a lot of hiking in it. So it felt appropriate to go hiking on that day. And then also, friendly reminder, marketing for your book does not end here. Marketing, you know, you do a ton of it and you're feeling motivated for it before release day, and then release day comes and sometimes authors just like shut off. They're like, I did it. I released my book. I got pre-orders. I got sales the day of. It's like a super, super exciting day. And then you just kind of forget to keep marketing after that. But the thing is, your book, like, if you set your book up for success really well, sometimes it can sell itself. Like if you work really hard to like build a readership, you won't find yourself like working as hard long term to get sales and readers. But the truth is, like, you really gotta keep working for new readers. Like, you might have your immediate audience on Instagram or on YouTube or wherever your author platform may be. You may get those immediate sales on release day, but you're going to be constantly fighting to find new readers to read and discover your books and love your books and review your books. So marketing does not end on release day. Make sure to always just keep marketing afterwards as well. So that is the quick and dirty version planning a book launch. Obviously, there's way more that goes into it than what I could cover today. But this is the portion where we can go into questions. So I can see there's a couple questions in the Q&A box. If you guys had any questions throughout the live stream that you haven't submitted into the Q&A box, please do that now. I'm going to turn off the screen share so I can come back to you guys. Let's see. Let me just figure out how to come back now. All right, I'm having all sorts of issues getting this presentation to go away. Okay, but you guys can see me, I believe. So yeah, let's start going into Q&A. We've got 15 minutes for questions now. Okay, we've got a lot more questions coming up. So I'm going to go just in the order that I see them. So question, if you're bad with deadlines, as in you want a book in advance, but not sure you can make said deadlines. I don't want to book an editor 6 months in advance, miss the deadline. Okay. All right. So if you're bad with deadlines, then my best advice to you is to set deadlines, but not necessarily schedule anything. So for me especially, I can be really bad with deadlines at the very beginning phases, like when I'm doing the developmental edits, just because like you just honestly, you don't know how long it's going to take you to do revisions. So yeah, I have the same issues where like I am so afraid to book my copy editor until last minute because I don't know if I'll be able to meet deadlines. So the best thing you can do is, write out deadlines for yourself on a notebook. I personally use like my writing planner. I write it all out like bit by bit, how long each step is supposed to take me. And I try my darnest to hit those deadlines, but you also have to be forgiving with yourself. You have to be flexible with your schedule. And some editors, like you can book with them and they can be a little flexible, but definitely don't be that client who's constantly like, oh, can we push it out another month? Oh, can we push it out another month? Because you want to be conscious of your editor's time as well. So maybe just try setting small, like if you have a big deadline, like finishing the first draft, make smaller deadlines within them, like writing the first, like let's write act 1 by this date and act 2 by this date and act 3 by this date. Because if you break it down, it'll feel a little easier and you may be able to hit your deadlines a little better. Okay, so the next question comes from Laura. Would you say that it's good to be your own publishing company rather than KDP? So Laura, in order to answer that question, I would need to know, like, I guess what you define as your own publishing company, because in the way you say that makes me think that you're saying like you want to print, like mass print the books yourself and handle all the shipping yourself, or maybe you just want to work with another print on demand company like Ingram Spark, which you can totally do. It really, I think it depends on what your goals are. I feel like working with KDP and print on demand companies is the best budget wise, but honestly, I can't say what's better or best for you because only you know what your goals are and what you want to accomplish as an author or as a publishing company. I personally, I own my own publishing company. My publishing company is Stone Ridge Books, but despite being Stone Ridge Books, I publish all my books still through KDP. So that's kind of what I mean by like, you can be your own publishing company while still being through KDP. Or, oh, I just realized you might be asking like when you buy your, like when you publish with your own like ISBN through your publishing company rather than a free KDP ISBN. That's like one of those really weird, complicated things where it like depends on what your long-term goals are. I made my publishing company for tax reasons and also because I knew I'd have like other things branching out outside of just my books. So that's why I did my publishing company. But if you want to do your own publishing company and you're trying to make that decision right now, definitely just do a lot of research, because once you establish an LLC to make a company, like there's a lot of things like paying stupid fees that you may not have anticipated. and just make sure that's the right fit for you before you make that step. We have another question. Can you do arcs before cover reveals? You definitely can do arcs before cover reveals. You can do things in whatever order you want. I just think it is more, you'll get more out of your arcs if you wait and like closer to release day, because if people are reading your book and they don't have a cover to look at, it almost makes it harder for the advanced reader copy readers to do anything with your book. So if they read your book and they want to review your book on like their YouTube channel, they don't have a cover to show to people. And that's like a huge marketing thing. Like you need your cover in order for people to like be able to place your book and remember your book. Like it would make more sense to do arcs after the cover has been revealed. And also like the point of arcs is to get reviews. And 9 times out of 10, if you don't have a cover somewhere, then it'll be just that much harder for people to write a review. So just always keep your goals in mind. Another question, how should you reach out to influencers and ask them if they would like to a review? How should you reach out to influencers and ask them if they would like to review your book for advanced reader copies? So there's honestly the best, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. I feel like the best thing to do is to email them. I personally, when people reach out to me in my Instagram DMs saying, hey, you should read my book, I just instantly delete it. I also am not a book reviewer, so I kind of delete those by default anyways. But try to be professional. If they have an email, reach out to them via email. Tell them as much about the book as possible. Give them the book cover. Send it as an attachment. If you can only message them on Instagram, send it over Instagram. Show them the book cover. Tell them about the book. Let them know of the release date and tell them how the advanced reader copy will be sent. So let them know if it's going to be a physical one, if it's going to be an ebook one, and if it's an ebook one, will they be able to read it on their Kindle, that sort of deal. And also just understand that a lot of people will say no. Like I get so many people still saying no to me. It's nothing personal. People are just busy. Can your books and tips work for poetry books too? Definitely a lot. I think everything that I've said today applies to poetry books. I can't think of anything not applying to poetry books. But there's definitely like things that you may need to modify the tiniest bit that may just be unique to marketing a poetry book. Hannah says, what's the difference between alpha readers and beta readers? There's not a huge difference. Alpha readers are basically beta readers, but like you may choose to only have 2 alpha readers but 10 beta readers, and alpha readers do like the really big picture stuff, and then beta readers may go a little more nitty gritty with plot. So when I send my book to alpha readers, I ask really big picture questions to my alpha readers. And then when I send my book to beta readers, I ask them way more questions on a chapter by chapter basis. So it just kind of defines the level of detail. Like alpha reader, we're just looking at really big plot structure. And then beta readers, we're getting into the really tearing apart the entire plot of the book. And for me, the beta reader process can be a little more painful than the alpha reader process. Okay, I may not be able to answer all these questions. Oh my goodness, I didn't anticipate so many. I was thinking about doing a week-long pre-order on Amazon, but I have a 1 to 2 month long pre-order over other vendors. I've never thought of doing that. I only sell on Amazon, me personally, so I can't really speak to this. But just know, like, you're going to have to modify your marketing to let people know, like, you can pre-order everywhere except Amazon. And then the week before your book releases, you can be like, you can now pre-order on Amazon. So you're just going to have to make your communication online a little more clear. How often should you change your keywords if your book isn't ranking? I would just say, like, it's not a matter of like how often should you change your keyword. keywords. It's more just like doing the proper keyword research in the first place, because I honestly don't think you should be changing it super often. Like the market will change, so you may have to change your keywords often, but it honestly, it's probably not the keywords. It might be more likely the categories that may need to be changed. It may also be the description, because if you can get your keywords in your description as well, that will help with ranking too. There's a lot of stuff that goes into search engine optimization, and I'd highly recommend checking out Kindlepreneur, because he covers a lot of that stuff since he created the Publisher Rocket product. And I think he has a webinar as well where he goes into that. So if you want to check that out, definitely do that. Do you know of a planner that is more like 2 to 4 years rather than just 1 year, like a month, like a monthly one only? I'm sure I know there are 2 or 4 year planners out there. They're just like not specific to writing. But I'm sure if you like Google that on Amazon, it'll come up. Okay. I'm thinking about having physical arcs available by request only if they have visual impurities or want to have nice book photos. So you can definitely do physical arcs. I really don't want to discourage you guys and say never do physical arcs. I'm just trying, like, as someone who has done physical arcs, I can just say, like, budget wise, it's just not worth it, because not only are you paying to physically print the arc, but you're also paying to physically ship the arc. So whoever you're shipping it to, like, just be mindful, like, sometimes you do have to ask yourself, like, will this be worth it money wise? And it sucks to have to do that, because you want to be able to include everyone, and you want to be able to make it so people can post really nice photos, but at the end of the day, like, it may just not work budget wise. So for what about split cover reveals, as in show off the cover on a Friday on YouTube, but it's not until Monday that it's everywhere? I've actually kind of done something like that. I've done it where I like to space things out, where like I reveal it on YouTube on Monday, and then on Tuesday on Instagram, and then on Wednesday on like my newsletter. Like sometimes it's fun to spread it out, so then like you can talk about it every single day but on a different platform every day, so you make sure you're kind of reaching your entire audience. So you can definitely do that. That's kind of part of the planning your cover reveal campaign process. I always felt a book being released in paperback should be formatted before hiring a cover designer, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Will most designers be happy to go back and make changes once you know exactly how big the spine will be? So for me, the way I work, and this is not how every cover designer works, but the way I work is that I design the cover, like just the front of the book first. And then I say, do you know the final page count? 9 times out of 10, people don't. And then I say, okay, let's pause the process and come back to me when you know the final page count. And then when they know the final page count, which is usually like a month or 2 later, they come, we, design the whole thing. So that's how I work. If other cover designers don't work that way, then it means they're fine with going ahead and making the update to the spine. All right, I have 2 minutes. I'm going to answer this last question and then I have to go. So once you're done with all your editing rounds, is it possible to put ebooks out on multiple platforms simultaneously? Do Google, Amazon, Kobo, and all have different formatting requirements? Okay, so we're talking about ebooks, right? So most of these platforms, these days, if you format your ebook correctly, you should be able to use the same ebook file across all of these platforms. The only place where it gets a little weird is sometimes at the end of your book, you may want to put a link to review your book. So like say you're making your book for Amazon and you put an Amazon link at the end of the book to review on Amazon. That's great for Amazon, but if you do that on other platforms, like if you take that same ebook file and upload it to Draft to Digital, which will publish your book on like Kobo and a bunch of other ebook platform websites, Draft to Digital will reject it because they don't like outside retailer links in ebooks. So that's like the only issue that you'll have is the weird, if you put links to other retailers in your ebook, you may have to update that for each ebook platform. if you put that link. And I personally love putting that link because I want to make it as easy as possible for people to review my books. So, with 1 minute to spare, I am wrapping things up. Thank you so much for everyone who attended. You have all been amazing. You all asked so many great questions. And I am going to sign off so you guys can get to the next webinar in the lineup and enjoy the rest of the day. But thank you all for attending. I hope you guys enjoyed the webinar. Again, the slides will be sent out to you guys afterwards. So you guys, if there was anything that you weren't able to take notes on, it's there. And also the little workbook. So thank you all so much. It's been lovely spending the day with you guys.